two 7/16 inch right here, and then down here on the bottom there are two 10 millimeter bolts that are about probably 2 inches long that go into a plastic clip right here. And then on this side there's another 7/16 inch bolt up here, and the radiator's over here on the right hand side. That's a 7/16 inch bolt nut right here that needs to come off. There's another 7/16 inch nut up inside of this bracket right here that has to come off right there. Had to loosen up this bracket right here. Here's the hydraulic lift arm for the hood right here, and there's a 1/2 inch bolt on the inside of this bracket right here that holds this, that had to come loose. Once I got all of that off, the headlamp came out, but in order to get the motor off the actual headlamp assembly, there's 3 bolts that you got to take loose. There's one right there, one in the center down there, you've got one right there, and then this is the one that I'll talk about further in the video. It's a 1/2 inch bolt, a 1/2 inch nut. And what I used was just a long extension down in there with a little swivel head on the end of it to get that loose. And then after you get those 4 nuts and bolts loose, the motor just comes off. There we go. Here's the motor that came out of the car for 1984. These are not like the smaller motors that come in the later models. This motor is pretty large, but this is the 1/2 inch bolt where that 1/2 inch nut went onto, that you have to reach through the headlight assembly to take off, unless you want to take the whole headlight apart. There's actually 8 of these screws that hold the housing, the 2 halves together. Once you get the 2 halves apart, you can pry this apart. Right now I have it hooked up to a power supply, a desktop power supply, and a power probe, so that I can test the motor and just look at it and see what's going on. But I'm sure there's other ways other than using a power probe. But right now it's working. So once you just take all the screws out, there's 8 screws, and you just lift the top off. You see the armature and the commutator bar. I cleaned this up with a piece of sandpaper. I went through here and inspected all the teeth. You can take this gear off right here. And you can take this plate off. And then this gear here comes out. This gear right here comes out. It's really hard to do with one hand. You can pull this out and inspect all these gears, these teeth on these plastic gears here. This gear here comes out. and you can inspect all the teeth on here. Best thing to do is make sure when you take it apart, you remember how everything goes back in there. There's some contacts down in there that I just took a piece of sandpaper and cleaned them up on that commutator bar right there. On both sides of that, a little piece of sandpaper, and I cleaned up that bar and the armature a little bit, and then down inside there's more contacts down on the inside, like points from an old engine, like point gap, I guess is what you'd call them, like from an old engine. There's a set right there, that and then there's one over on the other side, over there. I just took a piece of sandpaper and kind of cleaned them up. I didn't go crazy wild with it. I just wanted to clean them up. I'm going to put it back together now. I mean, I'm not really, I don't have a tripod or anything to work with here, and I'm not going to get involved in all that kind of stuff. If I help somebody figure this out, that's great. You know, I hope it helps somebody. Well, I got it all back together and ran it a few times with the desktop power supply. And I'm going to tell you, I took this apart and put it back together about 4 times, trying to get all these teeny tiny little pieces inside of this motor put back together so that it would run. A couple of times it just locked right up on me. The parts have got to be just lined up almost perfectly, and I'm just giving you a heads up. But you know, I'll put it all back together and see how it operates in the car. You know, it may work 2 or 3 times. It may not. May work 100 times. I don't know. I guess I'll have to wait and see what happens.